here trying to get rent control in Pasadena, right? Yeah. So I was the one helping to lead rent control in Inglewood. We got adopted for the first time in Southern California in a generation. We partnered with your folk in Pasadena. We partnered with folk in Glendale. We partnered with folk way out in Orange County. We all over the place. So sometimes things might seem impossible until they're done. And we're going to get some stuff done. So thank you all so much for making time tonight. We appreciate you being here. Let's turn it over to our panelists and welcome them to the stage. Irma? Thank you. Joining us tonight is journalist and producer James Farr, who's going to facilitate our panel. Pastor John B. Stewart, who is with Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance of Greater Pasadena. We'll go to the next slide. Retired Colonel Irma Higgins Cooper, thank you for your service, Colonel. Patricia Duff Tucker, founder of Set for Life. Let's welcome to the stage, and I'll turn it over.
Never met a mic that I didn't like, except for the one that's not on. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Again, my name is James Farr, and I am extremely honored to facilitate this part of this program. Now, I was told, Dr. Scarza, and thank you so much for your very well thought out and detailed presentation. Did you all learn something from it this evening? Yes. Okay. Now, Dr. Scarza, I was told I had an hour and 20 minutes to talk. And you had 15 minutes. So I'm going to honor the audience tonight, and I'm going to yield my time. But no, seriously, again, thank you, Ms. Deborah Ward and the YWCA for honoring your work and your mission of eliminating racism, as among many other tenets. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, my panel, for being here. Y'all look so beautiful. Like just standing here seeing everyone's smiling faces. As we speak right now, just across town, our mayor and city is having a State of the City address. Y'all could have been anywhere else. I've read his address, and I promise you it's not addressing what we're talking about here today. So give yourself a round of applause for being here and showing up for Black folks. I encourage you to read this report, to take some time and get into the text, get into the infographics, and kudos to the county for really making this like an interactive thing. I looked up my neighborhood and found out just how alone I was, and it ain't many of us over on this side. So welcome the panel. I want to first introduce, we have Patricia Duff Tucker, who is a 30-year resident here in Pasadena. She's a volunteer. We also have Pastor John Stewart, who's been here just about 50 years. And then we also have Miss Irma Cooper, who is a West Covina resident of almost, Covina, excuse me. Excuse me, right? Let me get that correct. And she's a colonel, so I don't want no problems. Right? So thank you so much for being here. What we're going to do, seriously, for about the next 15 minutes, we want to hear from this panel, and then we'll turn it back over to Dr. Scarza so that he can hear more from you about what you'd like to see as a part of this research, this listening session. A lot of the things I wanted to ask have already been covered, but I am going to start with you, Patricia, first and foremost. You have a microphone? All right. We go way back, so I'm having fun with this one. I just wanted to get your initial reaction, like when you had a chance to sit down with this data and hearing this presentation tonight. As a longtime resident here in the community, you've seen a lot. What is your initial reaction?
Honestly, I think my initial reaction is there's a lot of work to be done. Honestly, that was what I first reading it and looking on the website and looking in assessing the community that I've lived in for 30 years, particularly one of the particular areas that really that I kind of focused on was the housing. You know, I was one of the executive directors for a nonprofit here back in the day called Pasadena Neighborhood Housing Services. And that agency is no longer in existence. And the whole goal was of that agency, and I remember, you know, working hand in hand with the community to make homeowners of all people, whoever wanted to be homeowners, but we really focused on African Americans and creating an opportunity for them to become homeowners. So now to see that just such a low number was just something that, you know, is disheartening. And, you know, just there's a lot of work to be done with the mental health issues. The fact that we are number one in so many of the health disparities, it's just a lot of work to be done. But it's, as the doctor was saying, I am hopeful. So because we're all sitting here, and one of the first things I want to say is that one thing I think we can all do is, at least I'm going to make sure that we do it, is post this document. I think we can all take one step, posting the document on social media or our website.
Thank you, Patricia. Well, you know, hope is not much of a strategy for me. I need some actionable steps, and I think this tool that has been given to us will give us. What I want you to know in the work that you've done, and we look at those home ownership numbers, right? But my wife and I were participants in your program some 20-something years ago, right? And so these programs do work. We just have to let our community know that they're available. I would never be here in Pasadena, would have never been able to afford to live here in Pasadena and on my second home here in Pasadena. So thank you for that stewardship and that work. Pastor Tucker, excuse me, Pastor Stewart. I was elevating Patricia, right? Now, Pastor, you said that you, from a spiritual and physical perspective,
yes,
you've seen a lot in this city. Can you elaborate on that, and then how this report informs you based on what you said yesterday in our conversation?
Okay, in terms of matters spiritually, as a pastor, we look at things from a spiritual standpoint as well as from a physical standpoint. And when we look at our community, and like I mentioned, I've been here in Pasadena for 50 years. I've seen this community when it was a thriving Black community, Black entrepreneurs all up and down North Fair Oaks, the block just west of here. It was a main artery for thriving Black businesses, you know, and I've watched it go from thriving Black businesses in the 60s to relatively no Black businesses in the 2020s. You know, and I've seen the impact spiritually that it's had on the community. I'm also a member of a group called the North Fair Oaks Empowerment Initiative, which we're trying to revitalize North Fair Oaks, this North Fair Oaks corridor. And we sent out a questionnaire to residents in the community, and it was such a feeling of apathy and despair. They said, you know, why are you wasting our time? You know, there's no good that's going to come out of this. They're not going to give us any money. They're not going to do anything for our community. See, I've lived in Pasadena long enough to remember when the booming Old Town Pasadena was the red light district. Some of us that have lived here around 40 years or more remember when it was the seediest area. It was just motels, and you know, people tried to drive as fast as they drive up and down Fair Oaks to get out of it as they did then. You know, and so there's been some differences. As a matter of fact, in working in collaboration with the North Fair Oaks Empowerment Initiative, we got a grant for $265,000 for a stoplight. And that's been the biggest investment in this Northwest in 30 years. So, when we look at the reality of the things that we need, we could become easily discouraged. But, there's an old saying they used to say in the 60s, La lucha continua, the struggle continues. We have to keep on struggling, keep on fighting. And it's platforms like this that I hope that are going to be catalysts for the things that we need to do. I'm blessed as a pastor to have, as a member of my congregation, as a matter of fact, my senior deacon is Gary Moody. And he's lived here all of his life. And as a community activist and a past president of the Pasadena NAACP, he has a unique perspective on things in this area too, in terms of the things that we need to do as Black people, and not separating ourselves from any other people. But when we look at the disparity of the things, I was a little disappointed when I looked at the report and I didn't see a whole lot on Pasadena in particular. But I just want to share something. This is just from the homeless count from Pasadena that was done about 2 weeks ago. Pasadena has a population of 132,490. In the homeless count, there's 8% of the population is African American, but you know what? They comprise 30% of the homeless population. African Americans comprise 41% of homeless vets. 39% of homeless people are between the ages of 18 through 24. And 41% of the homeless in Pasadena are seniors. So, and you say that's just happenstance, that's just coincidence? No, that's because there's a system that's in place. And I've lived here long enough to remember we had a thriving Black community before the 210 freeway came in.
Okay. Thank you. And many of our seniors are aging in place right here in the city. Ms. Cooper, I want to talk to you because you're also the president of the NAACP San Gabriel Valley, correct? Yes. And so from a community organization lens, from a community partnership lens, how does this report inform you, and how do you see collaborations working with Artie and organizations like the NAACP?
Well, the first thing I noticed about the report was that it was consistent with the state report on the status of Blacks, and it's also consistent with the VA report on Black veterans. So the theme is the same, and we're collecting the data, which I am very happy about. People are now interested in the data. So that's a good thing, because if you don't have the data, a lot of these agencies don't want to listen to you in the first place. You have to have the data to support the outcomes. As the president of the San Gabriel Valley NAACP, what I would like to see is agencies working together. We have a lot of separate agencies doing the same thing, and we really need to get together, because when you have more people speaking, people listen. If it's just a few of us, they'll just wait us out, we'll just go away. But if we step in there with 10 and 20,000 people saying the same thing, we're going to get their attention. We'll get their attention. The The doctor mentioned a lot of the issues that are happening in Lancaster. I also sit on the LA Sheriff's Civilian Oversight Committee. And I am just amazed when we make a trip out to Lancaster and listen to those parents talk about the issues with their children. I really would like to see us work together so that black schools don't look like a damn prison. When I go to other areas and I see these beautiful buildings, schools with swimming pools and beautiful stadiums and basketball courts, and then when I come back to South Hills or I go to West Covina. Now, West Covina just built a new school, but it still is nothing like the schools that are in the suburbs. And the programs that they have, we got to start standing up and demanding that the environment to teach our children is not like a prison. Because when they get accustomed to going to school that look like a prison, it's just a precept to what it's going to look like every time they get stopped. When I first moved to the Covinas in the 80s, there was very few blacks there. I couldn't even get a job, and I had more experience than most folks at Intercommunity Hospital as a registered nurse and a military nurse with a master's degree, but I could not get hired. So I know every day we experience all of the things in those domains that they talked about. But we still have to work together to make a change happen, because they're not just going to do it out of the goodness of their heart. We have to make them do it.
And that was one of the things I was going to tell all of you. The accountability part starts with me, starts with you, it starts with emailing and us. I was getting there, right? But it starts with us, right? And we want to contact our county supervisor. We want to contact Dr. Scarza. We want to be in communication with them, right? Because what ends up happening is we sit here in these evening sessions and there was some good food and good conversation, but until we activate, right? And this isn't to say that you aren't doing anything, because again, you could have been anywhere, right? And you've chosen to be here on a Thursday evening on this bonus day of Black History Month, this leap year. So we get one more extra day to deal with some black issues. And so since we are coming up close on the time, we honor each and every one of you time this evening. We could sit here and talk for quite some time. I do want to give the audience another opportunity. If there's some things that maybe you didn't hear today, maybe a panelist didn't touch on, and you guys can also jump in this as well. But they're going to be recording this information back here on these boards, and it's important that you let your voice be heard right now, right? That is the call to action once we leave out of here, is to make sure. But if there's anyone that felt like they heard something earlier, didn't get a chance, and that thought just kind of came back in your head and you just finally got it together and you wanted to add something before we get ready to wrap up, just pop up, it's like the kitchen room table, the living room, just talk. Black folks, we talk over each other to be heard, right? It's not because we don't have a decorum, it's just that's how we talk. I'm listening. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So I have questions for the contributors, so Dr. Scarza as well as Tolu. I wanted to understand if there were any, or if you guys looked into environmental impacts. So looking at access to clean water, looking at air quality, and that of impact to health and healthcare, looking at maybe some of the food deserts in some of the Black neighborhoods. And so I know when folks think of environmentalism or sustainability, they think of very much whitewashed, greenwashed, I go hiking, and not thinking about what that actually means for the Black community and what the environment looks like for folks who are living in it. You know, what are the parks in some of those neighborhoods that might be impacted or might be adjacent to some of the refineries in Los Angeles? Or what is that impact to children? Like, did you guys look into any of those?
I don't know if we'll answer that right now because that's a whole lot to answer, right? The answer is yes. Okay. And then I would also Monday morning on KBLA, Dominique Dupree and I unveiled a Evitris survey that polled 500 Blacks, and what Black voters said is climate justice, social justice, and civil rights are paramount to them, right? Most important, and disproportionately affects Black, Latinos, and marginalized communities as opposed to Asians, white, or coastal communities. So I would invite you to look that research up. It's a very fresh study, and you can pull some data from that. Anyone else want to share? Just pop up, grab a mic or not.
Right here.
Up. Go ahead.
I'm over here, I'm sure. It's okay, they hear me. I was really happy to hear that the indicators that you're looking at in the next round are going to include youth, and that youth voices are being represented in that. I did have a question about kind of the span of the economic spectrum of those youth that are being invited, because as was mentioned earlier, people are going to have a different lens based on that. So that was one question. And then the other one is the correlation between substance abuse and substance use, particularly with youth. I'm sure it could be run across the gambit, but it just, with the new types of drugs that continue to emerge, very interested in how that's impacting Black communities specifically, and if it's disproportionate in any kind of way. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I'm not real comfortable speaking to crowds. I'm a one-on-one type of person, but I do have to mention this. She talked about something about the drugs in our neighborhood. It's no secret that we had an overflow of drugs in our neighborhood that decimated our neighborhood. So I can't think of millions and maybe billions of dollars worth filtered out of our neighborhoods because of the drug use in our neighborhoods. A lot of people lost their homes. That's why we don't have as many Blacks in our neighborhood now, because knucklehead kids was taking everything that was of value and selling it. But the other thing that I want to talk about is the injustice of our police activities. The injustice of our police activities has always been there, and that's one thing that we need to address. I'll go back to the 60s even, and I'll talk about some young brothers in Oakland who started a group. They called the Panthers. They actually started a political party because they seen the Republicans weren't doing it and the Democrats weren't doing it. They saw there was a problem with receiving health to our elderly people. They started the free health clinics. There was also problems with our kids getting the right education, and it's hard for a kid to get education when he goes to school hungry. So they started the free breakfast programs, which we still have going right now. But the other thing that they addressed, which got them in trouble, was our police need policing. They're not held accountable for the things that they do in our neighborhood. They come to some neighborhoods to serve and protect, but they come to our neighborhoods hunting for trouble. If there isn't any trouble, they have been known to start trouble. Instead of de-escalating your situations, they will escalate a situation. So much so that so many youths of ours have died from gunshots from the police, and not one has been held accountable. That's one thing we have to address, because we got to stop the lynching, because that's what it is. It's a lynching. When you have the right to shoot someone in the back because they're running and not held accountable for it, something's wrong with that.
Thank you, Uncle Bubba. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to follow Bubba's comment. First of all, I'd like to thank the panel. So I think everybody should give them a round of applause before they slip out of here. I just would like to kind of chime in on everything I've heard tonight. I'm running for mayor right now because of all of the elements that's been presented tonight. I say that I grew up here in Pasadena. My brother Greg Moody right over here is my fraternity brother. He's known me since probably 5 or 6 years old. So he knows that the pathway we've traveled to bring our community into its right place. But somehow with all of the issues that we've been discussing, we've missed it. What I'd like to share with this group in the audience before you leave is please, first of all, vote. That's where it starts from. Secondly, we must address a plan of action and have dates, times, and resolutions so we can move it forward. If we don't put these things into place, in my history and study of our city, of politics, of my history, and I love history, I'm a history buff, it will not be corrected. The only way it's going to be corrected is we must be of action and we must get results. So I'm hoping that before we leave here, Brother James Farrar will lay some elements down that we can achieve in maybe a month or two, come back and have a follow-up, and then see how we're moving forward. Because we need some kind of direction, and we need something that we can focus in on and see if we can achieve it. So that's what I'm hoping for. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Allen. Go ahead, please. Please.
In regards to the report, and excuse me, the next time, and I'm sure it's in there, but we really have to focus on preventative. I think a lot of times we react of what's happening, and I remember, in housing, it was so difficult to have everyone understand that let's try to help these people before they became homeless or but it was always no, they had to be homeless first, so they had to have this first, and that is something that I don't know why it keeps repeating itself, to focus on the preventative, not reacting after this. And that's what we're reacting after this is happening. And I'm excited, but I'm frustrated because I don't want this to just end and then all of a sudden it's over. We have to make steps and just make the decisions, even on a small basis. If it's a group of us can get together and see what we do, what you do, and how we can work in the community. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. I want to give the rest of the panel just. Pastor, I'm gonna come to you first because I know the pastor may be a little bit long in the tooth, so so we're gonna give you 30 seconds to kind of make some final thoughts, and then we'll go over to Ms. Cooper for another 30 seconds if you can do that for us, Pastor.
Okay, I'm gonna give you back 20 of those seconds.
Amen.
I would just like to say that from a standpoint of what we need to do, as mentioned, we need action. It's good to talk about the things that we need to do. It's good to have this information, but what are we going to do with it? How are we going to continue? Are we going to continue in these coalitions to actually get the things we need done in our communities? Like I said, as a long-term Pasadena resident, we need action. Butch talked about the police, and that has been a ongoing situation here in this city. I read to you the homeless information. And that's just homeless information. That's not the schools. That's not the 88% dropout rate at Pasadena High School and John Muir High School. We need to take action and do some things.
All right. Ms. Cooper?
Okay, what I would like to say is just a reflection of, I'm not sure what the man's name is,
Brother Shea?
but we do have to have a strategic plan. we have to make a commitment to give the time to show up and be at the table. The young lady mentioned